Cattle mutilations and human abductions. Quote, the next war will be an interplanetary war. The nations must someday make a common front against attack by people from other planets. End quote. Five-star General Douglas MacArthur in 1955. In the realm of UFO-related mysteries, the cattle mutilations and human abduction phenomenon are among the strangest reported. Thousands of farm animals have been surgically mutilated across North America, mainly in the Great Plains in the southern Rocky Mountain states, especially Colorado and New Mexico. Most of the mutilations have been done on cattle, although other farm animals have also been used. A common explanation is that the mutilations are associated with occult religious behavior, yet no group has come forward and no arrests have ever been made. The federal government shows absolutely no interest in investigating, and the Department of Justice dismisses it all as, quote, performed by persons as part of a ritual or ceremony, end quote. However, Lou Giorgio, chief investigator for the district's attorney office in Trinidad, Colorado, had been assigned to investigate the mysterious, bloodless, trackless animal deaths in southern Colorado. He concluded the perpetrators were, quote, creatures not from this planet. Here again, we have a clear division between those who report something high strange, the alien abduction phenomenon. The issue is very black and white. There is no gray zone. It is either so far out there that is simply unbelievable, or an experience that has utterly changed a witness's life. It should be noted that it is a form of gullibility to believe the official line as much as it is to accuse believers of the same. If there were not overwhelming proof, a logical motive, and plausibility, there would be no discussion. Yet there is little doubt that an alien-related phenomenon exists for the many thousands of people who have been witnessed mutilation remains or who claim to have been abducted. The big question about cattle mutilations and human abduction is, where could these stories be coming from? Do they originate up there, down here, or a combination of both? Or are we again dealing with mass hallucinations? Phantom cattle surgeons of the Great Plains. What is a typical mutilation? Commonly, the lips are gone, jaw, flesh, muscle is stripped to the bone, and the tongue removed. On other occasions, one eye is surgically extracted, the ear cord gone, small centimeter skin patch areas are sliced off, the rectum cored out in an oval cone shape, udders taken from females, male or female sex reproductive systems extracted, and if it is a pregnant female, the fetus is removed. However, the fetal bag is not cut. There are common medical observations by eyewitness reports from reputable sources such as veterinarians, the sheriff who was called out to investigate, or the rancher who lost his valuable livestock. But it gets even more high strange. All the blood is drained with no collapse of the vascular system, with not a drop of blood spilled anywhere. Tongues are cut far back in the mouth, yet not torn. Several mutilations can happen on successive nights, but there is no evidence of human tracks either. Apart from occult explanations, the federal government also blames coyotes, yet there is no blood remaining in any of the wounds. There are all carcass. The sex organs show specific parts missing. The carcass appear to be dropped from above and left dead on the ground. What's more, the cattle mutilation phenomenon has been occurring regularly for a half-century. It is quite apparent that the party responsible is harvesting blood, eyes, tongues, hemoglobin, and removing specific body parts in a very precise manner. In some cases, the incisions were made by cutting between the cells, a process we are not yet capable of performing in temporary field hospitals. Many thousands of individual cases have been reported with not a single arrest to date. It appears nothing can be done to stop the mutilations, along with no plausible explanation as to why they are occurring. There is no government explanation for the carcasses dropped into snow with no surrounding footprints, yet some of these animals weigh up to 6,350 kilograms. Since the phenomenon started in the mid-1960s, there have been over 50,000 reported animal mutilations. Cows and humans are genetically similar. In the event of a national disaster, humans could use a cow's blood. Incidentally, there have also been human mutilations. One of the first was Sergeant Jonathan P. Louette at the New Mexico White Sands Missile Test Range, who went missing in 1956. He was found 3 days after an Air Force major had witnessed his abduction by a disc-shaped object at 3 in the morning while searching for missile debris downrange. His genitals had been removed and his rectum cored out in a surgically precise manner. His eyes were extracted and all the blood in the body was removed, again with no vascular collapse. The Mysterious Valley. No other region in North America features more variety, intensity, and unusual animal mutilation phenomenon than are found at the world's largest alpine valley, the San Luis Valley of Colorado and New Mexico. The world's first reported animal mutilation case, called Snippy the Horse, occurred in September 1967 on the King Ranch near the Great Sand Dunes. As a result of this case, the San Luis Valley is regarded as the usual livestock mutilation phenomenon. Since then, hundreds of animals, mostly open-range cattle, have been found bizarrely slaughtered around the valley. Thousands more have been discovered elsewhere in the Midwest and Southwest. Nearly all of the mutilated animals are found devoid of blood, eyes, or other facial features, and signs indicate these body parts have been dismembered by precise heat laser incisions. Almost every mutilated animal has its soft tissue anal passage cored out and the genitals surgically removed. The fetus is routinely taken from pregnant cows, and it appears they are specifically targeted. There are never tracks found near authentic mutilation sites, neither predatory animal nor human, but many have been found near burned ground with detectable levels of radiation. Some of the dead animals appear to be dropped from above, with evidence such as broken branches directly above the carcass and cracked animal bones from the fall impact. There are very few, if any, additional clues available at an animal mutilation site. As a result, no one has ever been officially charged or convicted of perpetrating an animal mutilation. As the largest alpine valley in the world, the San Luis Valley sits like an altar at the apex of the continent. At least one researcher has compared the valley to the high altars atop Mesoamerican pyramids, describing the valley as, quote, North America's sacrificial altar, end quote, because of the multitude of animal mutilations. The San Luis Valley is also a location of frequent UFO and paranormal encounters, especially above and around the Great Sand Dunes and Blanca Peak. The UFO sightings include unidentifiable aerial aircraft, flying metallic orbs, and mysterious floating lights, or cheap fireworks, as the locals call them. Thousands of documented, highly strange accounts of UFOs, crypto creatures, human abductions, skinwalkers, Native American lore describing sorcerers, along with portal areas, secret underground bases, and covert military activity, including the notorious black helicopters, have been reported in and around the valley. Mere unsolved mysterious hotspot because no other region in North America features the variety or intensity of unusual phenomenon that can be found here. A common feature of the other primary North American paranormal hotspots, such as Area 51 in Nevada and White Sands in New Mexico, have a top secret military presence nearby. On the eastern slopes of the Sangre de Cristo Range in Colorado is the NORAD base located deep within Cheyenne Mountain. It is one of the most secretive and defensively secured military bases in the world. Reports of a clandestine underground base used by extraterrestrials or an interdimensional portal within the Sangre de Cristo Range and the Great Sand Dunes have also been claimed. Even Native American legends speak of a doorway in the Sangres that implicitly leads to another world or dimension. From the ancient past until today, strange phenomenon have been a constant feature in the valley. The San Luis Valley town of Crestone has hosted several UFO and mysterious phenomenon conferences. This mysterious region at the top of North America has a higher incidence of UFO reports than any other area on the continent. Meet Betty and Barney Hill. Anyone familiar with the alien abduction phenomenon likely has heard of an interracial couple named Betty and Barney Hill. On the night of September 19th, 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, a married couple from New Hampshire, were driving home from Canada when they were subjected to a terrifying experience. Initially, however, it was a lost memory. They arrived home several hours later than expected, and there was little to indicate that anything unusual happened during their return trip. After some months of unexplained emotional distress, the couple could take no more, and they sought assistance from Benjamin Simon, a Boston-based psychiatrist and neurologist. Subjected to rigorous time regression hypnosis, both Betty and Barney recalled precisely what had taken place during those missing 2 hours. Astonishingly, they provided a very close account of their encounters with alien beings who had taken the pair on board a very advanced aircraft and who had subjected them to a variety. Since the Betty and Barney Hill case, thousands of similar accounts have been reported around the world. A turning point came in 1981 with the publication of the late Bud Hopkins' book, Missing Time. Hopkins describes several abduction accounts, advancing a theory proposing that at least one extraterrestrial species was involved in the routine abduction of human beings. Hopkins' later work revealed a potentially far more sinister link to the abductions, namely that the aliens were kidnapping people as part of some genetic operation, the goal of which was the production of half-alien, half-human hybrid race. Human abductions. At least thousands, perhaps millions of people, some reports say close to 1% of the entire human population, have claimed they were abducted by advanced alien life forms. Such large numbers are staggering and deserve serious attention devoted to this matter, yet none is forthcoming. The abductees are not crazed lunatics. Indeed, more are the opposite. When these people are profiled, they exhibit above-average intelligence, rarely have any prior psychiatric history, and clearly were subjected to some kind of trauma. They often try to hide their experience for the backlash of incredulity the story might create. Another commonality of abduction confessions is that they all experience nearly the same circumstances. At the MIT Abduction Conference, Harvard abduction researcher John Mack said, quote, "If what these abductees are saying is happening to them isn't happening, then what is?" End quote. In summarizing his observations of the abduction experience, Dr. Mack wrote, quote, "I was faced with the choice of either trying to fit these individuals' reports in a framework that fit my worldview. They were having fantasies, strange dreams, or delusions of some other distortion of reality, or of modifying my worldview to include the possibility that entities, beings, energies, something could be reaching my clients from another realm. The first choice was compatible with my. The second was inconsistent with my philosophical grounding and with conventional assumptions about reality, but appeared to fit better what I was finding. It seemed to be more logical and intellectually more honest to modify my cosmology than to continue trying to force my clients into molds that did not suit them." End quote. The patterns or common elements that Dr. Mack observed in his patients' abduction memories can be described as: one, medical and surgical procedures, often including an introduction of the abductees to alien-human hybrids. Two, the relaying of an ecological warning about the survival of the planet and the human species. Three, the initiation of a transforming, consciousness-expanding event. And four, the eventual development of relationships with these beings. Subjects who claim they were abducted have in many cases discovered they were given implants in the nose, within the skull cap, or in the ear or in arm locations. Is the idea of implanted people who have been abducted really so far-fetched? Animal pets are regularly chipped, and sometimes implants are found in mutilated cattle carcasses. There are ex-cons now receiving RFID chip implants upon being released from prison. RFID chips are being introduced to corporate employees, and the overall rollout will be made to appear as beneficial to the implanted person. Fundamental Christians look at any form of implanted RFID chip as 666 or a mark of the beast. Who is doing this? Almost all of the human abductions and animal mutilations on Earth are done by the greys, small neo-saurian hominids with several subspecies. The greys, or the best understood zeta reticulans, appear to be divided into two different groups. There is one group that appears to be a little more tolerant towards human beings. The other group is interested in colonialization and conquest of planet Earth. Certain greys seem to have influence over the reticulin and the beetle tracks species of greys, where all gray species are in turn under the control of the draconians, at least as they interact with us here on Earth. It should also be noted that it could be that implanted and controlled humans are also under the control of the reptoids and also play a role in the mutilation mystery. The abducting greys are described as having a crystalline translator wand that allows telepathic communication with humans. This device can also completely subdue the victim. Crystals are known transmitters and receivers with incredible storage possibilities. Crystals, when programmed, hold certain frequencies and can counteract opposites, plus utilize tone and sound. Crystals can naturally absorb nature's information. Upon abduction, most subjects are inserted with a tiny 3-millimeter spherical device through the nasal cavity into the brain of the abductee. The device is used for the biological monitoring, tracking, and continued mind control of the abductee. The greys also have an energetic presence that can mesmerize an abductee, described as radiating at a higher frequency associated with all ET contactees. The greys are highly telepathic, intelligent scientists and are prolific across the universe. The greys are logic-based and operate on base cases are emotionally insensitive to humans. The greys range from 1 to 0.3 meters in height on average, with skin colors ranging from gray-white to gray-brown to gray-green to gray-blue. They have been cloning themselves instead of the practice of natural reproduction we use on Earth. Each time they reclone, however, the genetic copy becomes weaker, which is part of their problem. Their attitude towards humans is tolerance towards inferiors. They are technologically superior, but spiritually and socially backward. It would appear their brains or their intellect belong to a serpent race, whereas the larger reptoids allegedly act as the physical overlords and thus are of a higher ranking than the greys. Aside from feeding off of human and animal proteins and fluids, they also allegedly feed off the chi or life energy, the vital essence or soul energy of humans, as do other reptilian species. Their basic program is service to self rather than sharing or service to others. Our world is not the only world they have tried to conquer. Similar to other reptilian entities, they feed off of human and animal vital fluids by rubbing a liquid protein formula on their bodies, which is then absorbed through their skin. Like typical reptiles that shed their skin, the waste is excreted back through the skin. These greys have no stomach and digest their food by absorption through the skin or under their tongue. They are using this planet as a supply depot for biological materials and are responsible for nearly all of the human abductions and cattle mutilations. But just as the draconians do not wish to do the dirty work of abductions, neither do the greys. They leave that to the programmed life forces, the PLFs, or humans under their control. The draconians are a subspecies of the greys, or more precisely, masters of the greys. The command hierarchy in this reptilian society are the dracos on top, with the winged subspecies first in command. Secondly, the non-winged Dracos are next in charge. Then there are the Greys, and there are a multitude of species and varieties. Lowest on the pecking order are the PLF cloned hybrids being produced underground here on Earth. This group, which include genetically spliced aspects of the Greys, pose the greatest danger to Earth humans at this time. Hybrids. Dr. Stephen Greer of the Disclosure Project reveals compelling insider testimony that most of the UFO abductions are now being carried out by the so-called PLFs, or programmable life forms, developed in conjunction with the human shadow government or cabal. Therefore, according to Greer, once we defeat the cabal, we can stop the abductions and end the UFO cover-up. Greer's contacts confirmed that the PLF technology was acquired from the Greys and involves advanced cloning principles to create a biological robot, which is part human, part alien. To do this, a human fetus is grown in an artificial test tube environment. Without the pressure of growing in the womb, it retains fetal proportions and features, including the large eyes, big head, and thin body, on into adulthood. PLFs could easily be mistaken as Greys, as they look very similar but are genetic hybrids with some distinct human aspects. The PLF technology was first perfected in the early 1960s and soon put into wider use. This may be why there are no reports of alien abductions prior to the infamous Betty and Barney Hill case. Having studied the abduction phenomenon for over 45 years, Temple University professor David Jacobs, PhD, author of the highly regarded books The UFO Controversy in America and Secret Life, has come to regard the abductions as a means to breed hybrids in an attempt to replace our human population on Earth. He is somewhat apologetic about his conclusion and realizes how outrageous it sounds, especially to those with little or no knowledge about the aliens or the abduction phenomenon. According to Dr. Jacobs, the program is huge and spans a tremendous amount of time. It's done slowly and carefully to remain clandestine. However, the duration only seems long to humans, who have an average lifespan of about 80 years. Aliens presumably live much longer and have more patience and time to reach their eventual goal. And that goal, according to abduction experts, is to take over our planet, replacing Homo sapiens with a hybrid race. Dr. Jacobs feels certain that the intentions of the aliens is to build a critical mass of hybrids, and then when they are ready, a trigger event will disable our infrastructure and culture, allowing the hybrids to overtly initiate their planned takeover of the planet. How did they get away with it? The Greys, and by extension the PLFs, have the ability to magnify their mental field in order to maintain control over humans. Sometimes humans are seen working with the Greys. These human drones have been implanted and programmed. It is not known whether they work with the Greys willingly or unwillingly. The human assistants have appeared lifeless and emotionless to witnesses who observe them during human abductions. Similarly, as far as the Greys are concerned, the PLFs are not a species themselves, but they have been created to work for someone else. There are several different levels to the PLFs, and there are many instances that indicate they do not function independently. There are many different types of grays and PLFs, and they operate from higher orders. They are all programmed cybernetic organisms. In his blind quest to acquire high technology for military purposes, President Eisenhower met with the Greys and signed the Greada Treaty. But this was never passed by the Congress or made known to the people of Earth. Therefore, there is no valid treaty. Unfortunately, there is still a curtain of ridicule promoted by corporate-controlled mass media, NASA, and the US military, which keep many abductees silent and all reputable scientific researchers sidelined from the subject. The subject is simply too fantastic to be believed. The Greys are extremely deceitful to humans, and although they act on logic, to them abductions are logical, they use extremely complex forms of deception to bring about their goals. They are the most commonly observed alien entities encountered during UFO events. They use skillful telepathic communication. All the different species of reptilians are regressive members of a network, which is a type of loose alliance in which all have common aims. But it is the Greys and the PLFs who perform the direct work on people and animals. To serve man, it's a cookbook. The Greys are impregnating human females on a massive scale and later extracting the fetuses. Most of their biological materials come from cattle mutilations. However, it is known that at times they have done human mutilations and killed the subject. The human body parts found on the Greys' crashed UFOs was especially shocking to the US military and science personnel in the late 1940s, reinforcing their belief that the whole phenomenon must be kept secret until a plan is developed for how to deal with the multiple and increasingly bizarre implications. It appears the tall Greys have been on Earth for many centuries, along with their reptilian Draco masters, with a legacy base operating near the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. Another older base tied to ET abductions and human disappearances is about 70 kilometers west of the capital Honaria in the range of Mount Paparayan on Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. Also in the Solomon Islands on mainland Malatia, about 5 kilometers directly inland from the circular reef entrance, is a lake which has 2 connected entrances and exits. It appears the reptoids are mining a very rare type of gemstone with a far higher specific gravity than diamonds under this volcanic rock island. Back in America, the latest estimate is that over 1,000 Greys are currently working in the underground base at Dulce, New Mexico, doing genetic experiments. There are some books on the market which say that the Greys are our friends and that we agreed to these abductions. This is completely untrue. These are very disturbed entities and are here to exploit whatever they want on this planet for their own selfish purposes. They view humans in a similar way that the majority of people in society regard industrialized farm animals, to be harvested and exploited. It appears that the Greys are trying to regenerate their own species at our expense. They have apparently suffered either some kind of nuclear holocaust, or they may be on the backside of a bell-shaped evolutionary curve where, in essence, they are devolving instead of evolving because they lost their capacity to reproduce naturally. In any case, according to several autopsies of aliens that have been leaked, the Greys have an atrophied digestive system and many other physical problems. This would account for their attempts to crossbreed with humans as outlined in Intruders by Bud Hopkins. The book is a detailed study of an Indianapolis woman who, over the course of a decade, has produced several crossbreed alien children unwillingly, none of which she was allowed to keep. She has been coming to terms with these traumatic events ever since, helping us better understand abductions. It would appear that human abductions have been taking place for quite some time, but their frequency has accelerated in recent decades. For several thousand years, there have been reports of alien abduction for sexual purposes. Because of the number of reports coming from early church members, much attention was given to the phenomenon during the 11th and 12th centuries. Thomas Aquinas wrote in his 13th century book, Summa Theologica, quote, "If sometimes children are born from intercourse with demons, this is not because of the semen emitted by them or from the bodies they have assumed, but through the semen taken from some man for this purpose, seeing that the same demon who acts as a succubus for a man becomes an incubus for a woman," end quote. Another writer from this era named Bonaventura wrote, quote, "Devils in the form of women yield to males and receive their semen. By cunning skill, the demons preserve its potency, and afterwards they become incubi and pour it into female repositories," end quote. Carla Turner, PhD, was a dedicated and compassionate woman who helped many abductees come to terms with their abusive alien experiences, as she herself was an abduction survivor. Part of the trauma that most abduction victims experience, she noted, is the lack of support from the government or help from any official survivors group. Dr. Turner began doing independent abduction research objectively, cutting through the ridicule and denial offered by virtually every other channel. She was not afraid to tell the truth, no matter how bizarre it sounded. One such remark was, quote, "Personally, I believe one could control political leaders more easily with implants," end quote. Dr. Turner has appeared on the Montel Williams Show and other programs to discuss her research. She passed away at age 48 from a particularly deadly form of terminal cancer. She died rather suddenly in early 1996 after multiple death threats demanding she stop her work. Since Dr. Turner's passing, several other people involved in UFO investigations have also experienced threats, followed by contracting various forms of highly unusual cancer. The fast-moving cancer has been the cause of death for other researchers and would seem a way to eliminate a whistleblower without causing much suspicion. Some suspect that Dr. Turner's cancer was induced via radiation received from earlier abductions, but this cannot be confirmed. She did alert the public to the reptilian atrocities, which she called draconicide. One of her most remarkable statements was, quote, "Aliens can take us, our consciousness, out of our physical bodies, disable our control of our bodies, install one of their own entities, and use our bodies as vehicles for their own activities before returning our consciousness to our bodies," end quote. Whitley Strieber, one of the most popular abductees to write about his experiences, reportedly was abducted in 1985 from his cabin in upstate New York by non-human beings. He wrote about these experiences 2 years later in his first nonfiction book, Communion, with several more to follow. There is a pet theory among ET researchers which states that aliens, whether objectively real or not, serve as mirrors of our spiritual nature on an individual or a species-wide basis. Straber has voiced this theory in his book Majestic, where he says, quote, "In the eyes of the others, the aliens, we who met them saw ourselves, and there were demons there," end quote. The idea, spiritual or otherwise, that there is no objective reality apart from our own perceptions or projections of an internal state is an ancient cornerstone of many mystical thought systems. In that sense, what we see or experience at the behest of aliens or our next door neighbors is a product of our minds. This belief reduces fear, since changing our minds undoes that sense of threat. Throughout this book, this first order solution is mentioned as internal work from which appropriate action can emanate. That said, missing people is a documented phenomenon, especially children who often vanish without a trace. Since 1980, at least 20,000 children have been reported each year in the US alone. Implanted humans. The Andromedan Council has recognized that a sizable percentage of Earth's population was unknowingly implanted and negatively affected by gray, etheric, and physical implant technology. To briefly revisit the Andromedan Council, this is an intergalactic governance body of third to sixth dimensional beings with a particular affinity to humans, and who believe Earth's inhabitants have the right to be free of the reptoid manipulations. The manipulative techniques are meant to keep humans in a state of anxiety, fear, subservience, manipulation, and control. Though some physical implants have been found and removed by Earth physicians over the years, at our current stage of spiritual evolution and technology, we do not yet have the means to detect, measure, or eliminate the Gray's use of physical and etheric implants. On behalf of Earth's freedom, the Andromedan Council is helping to clean up the mess, but there is still much to do. Especially vexing are the microscopic implants within thousands, maybe millions of Earth humans, which are still in place and operational. The resulting spiritual, psychological, emotional impact and multiplicity of problems the Greys have inflicted on humans will take some time to fully resolve. They have unlawfully sought to enslave an unaware human population on this planet. As long as their presence is kept secret by the powers that be, while the people of Earth remain unaware of the many ways in which we are being manipulated, can our true human evolutionary advancements and spiritual freedom be fully achieved. Their influence has been strong, and it will take time for humans, especially those under the spell of implants, to break free. But first, we have to know what we are truly up against.